I can't fall back to sleep. I don't even remember what woke me up to begin with, but now that I'm awake, I can't fall back to sleep no matter how hard I try. It wouldn't even be so bad being awake in the middle of the night if I could just get up and move, but I can't move a muscle. I can't even wiggle as much as a toe, and trust me, it's not for the lack of trying. After the initial panic had set in and passed, and I realised that I wasn't dead, I racked my brain and tried to come up with an explanation for my immobility. I began to remember a lecture about dreams and sleep disorders in a psychology course that I took freshman year. That's what made me think of sleep paralysis, which might help explain why the only part of my body I can move are my eyes. Maybe if I paid more attention in class, I'd be able to figure out how to raise myself from this state. But as it is, I'm stuck here waiting for one of my roommates to come check on me in the morning. It doesn't make for much of a plan, but it's all I have. It certainly helps stop the growing pangs of fear that were spreading through my body, though in a pit of my stomach, I still feel uneasy. There is an ominous yet measured beep that I can faintly hear, too soft to be a fire alarm or a carbon monoxide detector, and it's been going on for long enough that it's definitely not a car alarm. It feels both close and distant at the same time, like it's by my side, but just out of reach. Regardless, this isn't the source of my uneasiness. No, it's something else keeping me awake. Something else stirring in my chest, giving me a sense of dread. It's like something is in the room with me, but I can't quite see it. Everything looks a little blurry, like things are moving too fast. There are other sounds, like the soft pitter-patter of feet around me, and just outside my room, I can hear what sounds like whispering. Since I don't live alone, and the walls are pretty thin, this usually wouldn't be a strange occurrence even this late at night. However, these voices aren't familiar, and the murmurs, though soft, somehow sound urgent. While I want to decipher what they're saying, deep down I know that even this is not what has me on edge. It's something in the air. Something is off. As I'm trying to pinpoint what is making me feel so restless, the sound of shuffling feet, faint whispers, and even the incessant beeping all began to fade away. My vision swims and darkness began to swirl around me, growing thicker. I can feel my chest tighten and my breath catch. I try to cry out, but no sound emits from my mouth. Not a scream, nor a squeak. I try desperately to move, even an inch, but my body doesn't respond. It feels as though I'm being held down by invisible hands. I'm being smothered by an infinite darkness and a deafening silence. The pangs of fear that I suppressed before grow and spread through my body with a burning fervour. The uneasiness that welled in the pit of my stomach is now full-blown terror, and just as I'm about to succumb to my fear and apparent demise, a bright light parts the sea of darkness, and I'm brought face to face with a woman. The woman's hair is a ghostly white, which reaches out into the infinite darkness surrounding her, like wispy tendrils. Her skin is so pale that it's almost transparent. I feel like I could make out the bones beneath her skin if I strained my eyes hard enough. But it's not her hair or her skin that has me captivated. It's her eyes, or lack thereof. Where her eyes are supposed to be, instead are just sunken black sockets. Staring at them, I feel as if though I'm being sucked back into a never-ending black void. With some difficulty, I eventually manage to pull my eyes away from them. Looking down, I notice that she's wearing a long white dress that matches her hair. The dress was obviously once beautiful, but now it lies in tatters, clinging to her body like vines on a gnarled tree. I raise my gaze to meet hers yet again, but before I can even try to utter a word, she raises a withered finger and points directly at me. Her thin lips part, and she lets out a low moan. As her mouth widens, the moan begins to raise in pitch, like a kettle coming to boil. Her moan rapidly escalates into an otherworldly wail. Her mouth has now become so impossibly wide that it's carnivorous. I shut my eyes and covered my ears in a desperate but futile attempt to block out the piercing sound. It continues for what feels like an eternity. I feel blood trickle out of my ears and down my neck. Even with my eyes closed, I still see her ghostly visage looking at me. It feels like she's almost looking through me, directly into my soul. When I finally open my eyes, it's not to the oppressing darkness of the female spectre, or even the familiarity of my room. but to what appears to be the inside of a hospital room. I try to move, and I'm immediately jostled by a sharp pain in my chest, a sharp cry past my lips, and my hand automatically reaches towards my chest. I'm not given much time to reflect on my shock as someone strides into the room at that moment. A pale man with a bald head looks down at me and smiles, showing off an impressive set of white teeth. He's dressed in a white overcoat and has a black dress shirt peeking out underneath. I wouldn't try to move if I were you. Trust me, I'm a professional, he says with a mischievous wink. As he steps closer, I make out a name on a badge pinned to his lapel. It reads Don with 2 N's. I turn my head and I'm greeted by a very familiar beeping. The heart monitor is connected to my chest by tubes and wires I can't quite see. There is also an oxygen mask lying by my head. The doctor seemingly reads my thoughts and explains that I had quite a rough night. I was wheeled in by the paramedics last night after I collapsed in my room. One of my roommates had called 911. You had a rather close call, he finished, still smiling. I begin to straighten up slightly, and he hands me a small cup of water. After a few sips, I tell him about my nightmare. His smile never fades as I talk. Sounds like you dreamt of a banshee, he says when I finish. He begins to explain when I give him a quizzical look. Ghastly spectres that let out blood-curdling cries. They're known as harbingers of death. His grin seems to grow wider as he talks, and I feel an uneasiness sprout in my chest. Despite their frightening appearance, they're merely warnings that death is around the corner. I begin to cough and reach for my chest again. Death does not like to be cheated. You mortals, you build structures and even create professions just to delay the inevitable. An utterly pointless venture, wouldn't you agree? I clutch at my chest and look back at the small paper cup of liquid. Then I realize it's not water. The man's skin begins to fall away, and he reaches a skeletal finger to pluck out one of his eyes. He removes his white coat, letting it fall to the floor, and pulls up the hood of a black robe he's wearing. The creature looms over me and gently closes the lids of my eyes. I sincerely hope that your next dream is a bit more pleasant.